When so you talked there, you kind of got into politics. It sounds like when you were working at Boland's. Can you what do you like about politics, or what
Every bit of it.
What attracted you?
Mainly for women's rights is the reason I got in politics. And Bob was a big, and still is, Republican. And one time, he put a Republican sign in his window. And one of his customers didn't say a word, and she brought 4 Democratic signs and put in his window. And I went, ah, ah. Bob said, Lou, you take those signs down. I said, I didn't put them in there, dear. And this customer, who was one of the leading customers he had, big money, he said, look, buddy, you put Republican, I'm putting 3 to every Republican you put in any way. He had to take his sign out, and we had to take the others out. But, yeah, and then I had a chance to go to Granbury, and I read it in the Texas Monthly that this was a little town, a historic town that was developing, and I thought, oh, I'd been at Boland's 20 years, and I thought it's time for a change. Bob took a partner, Bill Coker, and I didn't like Bill. So you don't have to put that in there. Okay, and anyway, so I decided it was time to move on. And Bob didn't want me to move on. I said, you did it. So that means that's who you wanted, so you got it. Well, things didn't work out that way for him, and he got took to the cleaners. But I went to Granbury, and loved it in Granbury and had a wonderful time. And then after that, Mary Lou and I bought low and sold high. We bought an old log cabin for $4,000, and it had the chinking inside, and it had clapboards all on the outside, and it looked terrible. And we always asked Jess what he'd do with it, and he said he'd call the volunteer fire department and let them use it as a. And I looked at Mary Lou and I said, it's a go. And so we painted, Mary Lou and I painted it on Monday. We closed the stores on Monday, and we painted it a steel gray. And we got little flagstones and put for a walk, and we put flowers around it, and we sold it for $55,000. And they made a bookstore out of it, and it's a bookstore now. And Mary Lou and I got a little income. We still get a little bit all the time. And so that was one thing. And then...
and how did it feel to have your own business versus just working for somebody?
Oh, I loved it. And we made good money. Now, Mary Lou and I did learn a lesson when we did the Cuckoo's Nest. We drove that man, the president of Granbury State Bank, crazy. He said we ought to be home, taking care of our husbands. And I said, barefoot and pregnant? And he said, yes. I said, well, I'm too old. I'm 50. And Mary Lou said, well, I'm 55. And no, So anyway, we borrowed $3,000. We didn't want $3,000. We kept $3,000 up until almost 3 months. And that's when they'd add and we paid the $3,000 off. Then we'd buy $5,000. And we didn't want it. We just let it sit there. Then we just kept on until it was $10,000. $15,000, just driving him nuts. And so we came in there and we said, we're going to open another store. We want $25,000. He said, I am not in the mood to argue with you two. I'll transfer it into your account. So he did. And we put together for $25,000 the Cuckoo's Nest. And we went to Dallas at the Magic Time Machine and got the best cook they ever had, and stole him and put him in as there. And we had crepes and quiche and steak. And we had a steak that was about this big, and it was chicken fried, but it didn't have all that batter on it. And so we had that, and what was I getting with it?
What the menu was, or you had borrowed $25,000?
Yeah. So then we'd had it 6 months, and Mary Lou and I we had people in a little town. You can't find a lot of people to work, and we had people cleaning up the nut house and the nut shell at night. Nobody could we get to clean up the. So Mary Lou would clean the kitchen one night, and I would vacuum and clean the front. There was no sleep in there for us, and then we'd switch. Well, I was the one out there vacuuming after we had it 6 months, and it was Cliff Cook said my aunt and she was a plastic surgeon out of Denton, would like to buy this, and we'll pay you $45,000 for it. And I said, oh, I don't think we want to sell, but let me go talk to Mary Lou. So I went back there and slammed the door, and I said, we can dump it. And she said, let's go. I said, no, let's have a cup of coffee and let them think we're talking about it. So then we sold it. End of the year, the IRS came back and said, you owe us $11,000 quick turn gain. Quick turn gain, I learned what that word was real quick. And so when we figured it out, Mary Lou and I worked 6 months for less than minimum wage. We didn't draw anything out of there because we was trying to build it up, you know. It was just terrible. Anyway, we sold. That was a good lesson. Well, I've had a lot of good lessons in my life. And then we went to Poly and bought 3 buildings, Mary Lou and I did, and I sold the last one after she had died, and we had some partners and her son, and I missed her. I lost 1 year in 2000. I lost Jeanette Thomas, my best friend, in August, Sue Byers in October, Jess in December, and Mary Lou in January. It just, you know. And when you get my age, you just, you better find you some young ones, honey, or you're just not going to you're going to wind up in a room all by yourself. And I'm just not going to do that. That's why I don't mess with these old people, my God. They leave you quick. What else do you want to know?
Okay, go back to politics. What is it that you like?
Oh, so Mary Lou and I were selling out, and we were moving to Fort Worth. You're doing some stuff. And I said, okay, because we'd sold the nutshell, sold the nut house, you know. So Bob called. He said, Lou, get to Fort Worth. We're going to run for mayor. I said, you don't want to run for mayor? Yes, I do. So I went in to Fort Worth and run Bob for mayor and won, I think it was 92%. Didn't have any problem running him for mayor. And then I started running, and I never called anybody to run their campaign. Then I did 3 school boards and won. And then I think in my life I've done 12 city council. I've got 2 on the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. McBride is one of them. I have 6 judges in Fort Worth. And, and I worked for Lieutenant Governor Bill Hobby for 12 years and loved it. Went to Dallas, Austin here twice a month. Renee was at UT when I was doing part of that. And John Glenn was going to run for president, and Bill Hobby was his campaign manager here, and so Texas, and so then therefore I was doing his, and.
Do you wish that you had gotten into politics earlier?
Yeah.
I know you were involved a little bit. Do you wish that, or do you think that without the jobs that you'd had before, you wouldn't have been able to do as well in politics?
I think the jobs I had before really trained me to do politics. I really do. And one of the issues that I always ask them, and I said, I'm going to watch you. And the minute you do something wrong, nationally, I'm going to go on TV saying that you said you would. And I said, don't push me because I'm going to do it. Do you believe in equal rights? That's just one little sentence, you know. And I'll tell you who helped women more than anybody was Martin Luther King, because he said that all people are created equal. because the Constitution says all men are, and you know black men was never created equal. So he included that as people, and he got women. And very few women will admit where that really came in, but that's when we begin to get it. We're still not up, and don't ever let anybody kid you, to the scale of pay, but we're a hell of a lot better than we were in the beginning. Now, it's an embarrassment to your family if you stick to your guns and believe what you believe. And I think I embarrassed my family a lot of times on my children, on what I believed in. But it paid off for them later on. And I loved what Ann Richards, and I worked for Ann Richards when she was a treasurer and governor. And Ann Richards, and I'll always feel like she was a dear friend, she always said, if it wasn't for us broads, you would never have equal rights. And you were right, and she was right. And, you know, you take a lady that's well-educated, was a teacher in school, who was county commissioner in Austin. You have to be pretty strong to be that. And she did wonders for the financial end when she was governor. They didn't have the equipment. They didn't even worry about it. They didn't worry about, they didn't worry about women or things. So, and then I asked Bill Hobby before I was called to meet here in, I didn't know why, Austin, to a candidate that wanted to run for lieutenant governor, and he was a senator and wanted to run for lieutenant governor. And would I take his case? But I'd have to come down and interview him, and I had no idea who it was. And it was Bill Hobby. And I said, well, I got to ask you one thing, sir. Arrogant God, I don't know what, I hadn't got killed. I said, do you believe in equal rights for women? And he said, my mother was the first commander of the Army in the United States. And she would literally disown me and kill me if I did not believe for equal rights for women. Yes, I believe in equal rights for women. And I've always admired Bill Hobby for that. Bill Hobby was wonderful. He's had a wonderful wife, Diana, and I loved working for them. They were just something.
Well, 1 minute. Let me just check your focus.
Hmm?
I just need to check the focus. You're telling some good stories.
Do what?
You're telling some good stories.
Oh.
Do you think that Nanny would be proud of you? Or your dad?
I think my dad would. I think I was a big embarrassment to my mother. I did not believe in Southern living. I did not believe in cooking. I did not believe in the little woman. I believed in living. My mother never kept a good house. She didn't believe in that because she always had servants to do it. There was a lady named Nancy. And Jess, when Kathy was 6 and Susie was 2. And we went back to Plaquemine. Jess had never been to Louisiana. And so we went back to Plaquemine and toured around, and I showed him where my grandmother and grandfather lived, and the levee where it broke that time, and the church. And that was a funny thing too, because Lori Earl and I, right down the street from my grandmother and granddad, was a black church. And Lori Earl and I used to go down there and sit in the window. And back in those days, you heard of Holy Rollers. Well, honey, they'd scream and get down in the hall, and we'd sit there in the window and we'd scream and we'd fall out of the window, And one day, 2 big black hands pulled us out of that window, honey. And Nancy popped us all the way home, honey, and told us what we were making fun of their religion, and we weren't. We just thought that was the best thing that ever happened to. But she didn't think that was funny.
But who was Nancy?
Nancy was the black lady that grew up took care of my mother and all of her siblings and my grandmother. So anyway, I take Jess back. And I told Jess, I said, and this is true, during the war in Mississippi, there was a submarine, a German submarine that got through, and they found it near Baton Rouge. And it was a German sub. It was a little miniature sub. Jess said, Lou, you tell the wildest tales. I said it was true. So we had to go by Nancy's house. And so we stopped at Nancy's, and of course Jess stayed in the car, and kids and I go out. Nancy opens the door, and she starts screaming, saying, my white children done come to see me. We get to the door. She said, where your husband? I said, he's out there in the car. She opened that door and she said, you white Texan boy, you get your ass in this house. And old Jess just thought that was a lie. So he got out and he came in. But boy, she could cook, and we stayed there. And then we went on down. My aunt, Esther, they had a lake house down on the bayou there, but we had to pass where this submarine was, and we stopped, and I took pictures, and I'm trying to find them now, of this submarine that they found in the Mississippi there. And it was interesting. The kids loved it, and we went on it. They let you go on board. And
did you ever have to deal with, I think I'm starving. Did you ever have to, how did you know, you're not, to me, I know you're not prejudiced.
Mm-mm.
And so, were you taught not to be prejudiced? Or
No, my mother was so prejudiced it was pitiful. My life, and I want to tell you, honey, my life changed at 4 o'clock, December the 13th, 1944, when my dad died. He was 41 years old, and he had a heart attack. And there went my college, because I was ready to go, and my whole life changed. I would not have had the life. I really think my life would have been different had my dad not died. And that's the way it was. I don't know. I don't know anything else to tell you either.
I think you misunderstood the question.
Oh.
How did you learn not to be prejudiced?
Oh, because I believe in equal rights. When you believe in something, and you believe in it all your heart, I don't care what color you are, who you are, male, female, child, it does not matter. If you believe hard enough, everybody is equal. Now, my mother did not feel that way. She was very prejudiced. Leela was prejudiced. And it just, nobody is under you. And through the grace of God, you're not under anybody else. And I just don't believe. And I believe if any of you all ever acted prejudice around anyone, I'd be the first to chomp you, because it's just not right.
Did you like having children?
Yeah, I loved having children. I love children. And I loved you all when y'all were little. And I love you now, but I mean, it was fun. I wished I'd have had more freedom and didn't have to work, to have enjoyed them more.
What's your proudest thing you've ever done?
Proudest? Mm-hmm. Probably having children. I loved them.
What's the hardest thing you ever had to do?
Probably, I won't say work and leave my children at home. I think they had a better understanding, and they weren't pampered. I saw so many kids pampered that got 21 or 22 after college that didn't know what to do. I mean, they couldn't take care of themselves, What was the hardest thing I ever done? I think getting old is hard, because when you were part of every child's life, and then all of a sudden you're not. I am not part of anybody's life now because everybody grew up, and they should. I mean, this is not something that I resent. I mean, I think it's wonderful to be independent and to have your own life, but I'm not a part of anybody's life, and it's hard. It's real hard. I'm the last to be thought of. Not that anybody wants to overlook me, I don't mean that, but when you're out in public and you're trying to make your way, and it's hard, because I've been there, it's hard to think of everybody. And young people really, I don't give them a chance, but a lot of young people don't really have time for old people. And that's hard. Sometimes when you're by yourself, you feel like a second-class citizen, but not very often. Not very often. If I get mad enough, honey, I just get out there and fight it. So that's a hard thing, getting old. And you lose all your friends. I mean, you think back. I mean, all these people that went with you and understood your thinking and what you were doing, and I mean, Ann Richards gone. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to lose your friends.
How do you think other people see you?
Probably as an idiot, but that's okay. I don't care. I don't know how other people see me. I really don't. I know how I see me. I know where I'm going.
How do you see you?
Huh?
How do you describe yourself? How do you see yourself?
When I get up in the morning, I don't get up to hurt anybody. I don't try it. Now, I like to joke. I really do. And I like to kid around. But I don't try to push my opinion on anybody. I hope no one ever thought I tried to push my opinion on anybody, but I never changed my opinion, and I never will. And so, but and I have a lot of good friends at St. Francis, and a lot of good parents, you know.
Can you,
whatever phase of life I'm in, that's what I'm in. You know, when I was in politics, I was in politics. When I worked for Boland's, I was in Boland's. You know, when I raised kids, I'm raising kids. Now I'm at St. Francis, and I have 817 students. No, 819 students, because I have Trace and...
Can you talk a little bit about, because this is so, I think, unique to our family.
Do what?
Can you describe the sense of humor of our family?
Yeah, I think we all have a good sense of humor. I really do. I think we're hard-headed, and I'm sure a little bit of that kind of come through on me. And we're independent. I don't think we have anybody that's not independent. I watch real close, and they're all independent, strong-willed, and that's what you. And I see nothing wrong with that. I see nothing wrong with that. You don't depend on you. You depend on yourself, and if you depend on yourself, then you can love. You can love the people around you and your family, and you know. And I do. I love each one of y'all. I love to sit and watch what you're doing and what you're thinking, and.
How would you like to be remembered? Like, what do you think?
That she tried.
Could you start that just saying, I'd like to be remembered, or?
I'd like to be remembered that she tried. Whether she did it right or whether she did it wrong, she had a good heart, and she tried. And she tried the best for her kids. And she wanted them all to have an education. I wanted each one of y'all to have an education. Maybe I didn't do it right, but I was in there plugging for you whether you got it or not.
And
You're getting tearful.
I just love you so much.
I love you too, darling.
What do you think your legacy is? What do you think you've given us all?
Hard-headedness and the will to learn. The will to learn. We can learn so much out of life if we just want to learn. You know, I know I didn't give you cooking, but you know, if I can't do it in 5 minutes, let's don't do it, you know. But a mind, a good mind, the will to open a book and see what's inside that book. You know, like I tell the kids, you can go anywhere and do anything if you like to read. And, you know, everybody likes to read. I'm proud of Dee Dee. And she had her problems and has turned out well. God knows you did. You know, you've been more independent than any of them, honey. I worry about Julie. I do worry a lot about Julie.
If you had to tell something to let's just start with your kids, the 3 girls, I know, 2 girls still left, but if you had to tell them something, what would you say to them?
Love their family. Watch their kids. That is the most important thing, is family. The most important thing in everybody's life is family. Now, if you don't love your family and you don't want to help them, and I don't mean with money. I mean, money's good, but no. Just encouragement. And I hope you always think I encouraged you. You know, and God knows y'all were left enough, you know. Sometimes I hear people say what a terrible childhood they had, and I think, it's what you do every day that adds, you know, to your life.
And how about your grandkids? What would you hope for them, or what would you ever want? I mean, is there anything you want to tell them?
I would tell them to persevere. That's what I tell them. I tell you that. To keep in there and plug, honey. And to get an education. To get an education. Always to get an education. And whether you get it with books or whether you get it with life or whether you get it with... Because life's going to give you an education. If you stop and think, you'll learn a lot in that life.
And if there had to be like a headline about you, like on the cover of a newspaper, what would it say?
Well, the old fool finally made it. I don't know, honey. I don't know. She tried. She tried. Maybe it wasn't right, but she tried.
Is there anything that you think I've missed or that we've left out?
Well, let me think. No, I don't think so. Do you? I love you, Jana.
I love you too. Well, here's a question. Why? And I know the answer to this, but like, once Uncle Jess died, how come you decided to never remarry?
Oh, honey, I raised one. I'm not raising another. I made a promise, and I never break a promise. I may march around that promise a lot, and people don't go, well, she forgot and she's not doing it. In 1945, when I said I do, there was no way I was going to break that promise. And I stuck. And Jess had his life. We were completely opposites. No matter what he thought, I thought of something else. And I imagine he had a pretty hard time of it. And no, I'd never do it again. Never. One time I got mad at Jess. One time I got mad at Jess, and I said, I'll tell you one thing. If I had to do it all over again, I'd never get married. And I'd raise all my children to believe the same thing. He said, do you know what you just said? And I said, oh, well. Yeah, that didn't sound too good. No. I like to have a goal. I like to wake up in the goal. I think this is what really, Jess was a good man, but I think this is what drove him crazy. I wake up in the morning and I got a goal. Now, whether it's scrubbing a floor or whatever I'm doing, I know what I'm doing that day. Jess never had a goal. He just kind of, laid. But Brooks's were a different lot. And
why do you, if he was so different, why did you marry him?
I don't know. Well, opposites attract. And I had an easy life with Jess. And see, it was a lot of problems too. But, Jess was easy to live with. And his children adore him. His girls think he walked water. He told the girls that I was high maintenance, that he had to do all, Jess never paid a bill. He never worried about a bill. He never worried about anything. And he was different. And I had a marriage. I didn't have to worry about life that single girls have to worry about. Maybe I was chicken, and that's what I liked about it. Just being, that's it.
What's the thing, you've had this great long life, and
Yeah, I have.
you've seen the world change in so many ways. What's the best way you've seen the world change and the worst thing you've seen?
I think the advancement that we have done through science and through illnesses and things, I think we've overdone a lot of it, the worst part of it. I'm sure we had cancer back, but we didn't know that.
Take a drink of your tea, you got that.
Huh?
Take a drink of your tea. Clear your throat.
But I think we moved too fast. I don't think we have to take time enough for each other, because we can't. Life doesn't let us do that anymore. I don't think we have. We used to have a lot of getting-togethers and barbecuing and doing all this, and we don't do that as much as we used to. And I think that easy living. I don't think we have the little pearls on in the beaver families anymore, all American, and I don't know. I kind of like it is now. I have a good time, and young people I'm accepted into their, rather they act like I'm accepted into it anyway, so I have a good time.
That was fun dancing with you last night.
Oh, I used to love to dance, and I did dance a lot. And I can't breathe now. That's my worst thing. If I could have breathed, I'd have been on that dance floor all that time, honey. I wouldn't have cared who I danced with or what. And but I love it.
All right, well, I think that's it.
I have a dentist in Houston, Ron Ray, R-H-E-A. And I love him to death. And he and I have just become good friends. And his wife, Kay, teaches there. Well, I had 2 heart attacks. Then I had one day I was sitting there, and right here, I couldn't breathe. And I had a class coming in, and I'm saying, well, Ray tells him that they rushed me to the hospital. And so he's there. And he said, Lou, you got gallbladder. I've got the best surgeon. Don't worry about it. This is great. Okay. That was on a Wednesday. And they go in. I think this is what's so great now. Before, and I'm using this as an example, not for me, but why you ask me about what happened before and what I think about. Before, if you had a gallbladder, they cut you up here. It took 6 weeks for you to get over that. I went in the hospital on Wednesday. They did a scope. Is that what? Through your navel, they put a light. I often wondered why they went through your navel. Well, it's just for a light. And they give you 2 little holes here. They get that gallbladder out. That was on Wednesday. I went back to work on Monday. That is the difference between before and now. Air conditioning. Let's talk about really full air conditioning now. You don't have water cooler. Water cooler, Sonny throws water all the whole room. Everything is dripping wet. Your floor's ruined, your carpet's ruined, everything. Now you have regular air conditioning. And just so many things are so much easier. You have indoor toilets. You don't have stoves that you have to heat an iron on. And yeah, things are better.
So you like modern day life?
I love modern day life. And I don't like wearing dresses.
Why?
I just don't, and I won't. I wore heels and suits my whole adult life. And the day I took them off, I said, no more. And I won't. I was the only one there at that wedding in pants. Did you notice that? That's okay. A lot of them up there had already died. They'd been proud of me. I was just a rebel out there.
You earned your pants.
Mm-hmm. No, you know, if I ever get where I'm not, well, where I'm not trying to prove a point, I'll go back to a dress. But I don't want it right now. Well, I hope I've helped you.
No, you have. It was wonderful.
Okay.
All right.
Go get your bath.
Okay.
my hands, okay?
This is the most important part, isn't it?
Yes. Getting it mixed good.
Okay, tell me one more time because my audio wasn't working. What's in this?
Okay, you make the cornbread,
Mm-hmm.
and then you eyeball 4 drumsticks. I know, 5. And then I put sage in the water, and then I'm boiling it in, and a little salt, and then I add that liquid in here and cut up the chicken and put it in here. And you can't tell I got any chicken in here. And then I have carrots and celery and onions cut up, and I saute them. Cook them a little while because you don't want them raw. And then I'm just going to use one of these of sage. We're going to see whether that's enough, okay?
Okay. Will you taste it?
I'm fixing to. You want to taste it?
Okay.
I can put more sage if you think.
It's sweet.
I know.
It's delicious.
I don't have any.
They must be from the cornbread mix, but it's
Yeah.
good. I'd say a little more sage. Well, you taste it and tell me what you think.
Well, I thought a little more sage myself because I tasted it. But I thought, no, wait.
Are there nuts in there?
You could put nuts in there if you wanted to.
And who taught you how to make this?
Grandma.
Nanny?
Holshouser.
Really?
Mammy, as they called her.
I guess Nanny didn't teach you how to cook anything.
No. Oh, well, Leila said Mama was a great cook. And she raised flowers. I said, Leila, did we grow up in the same house? I don't remember Mama raising flowers and cooking. She said, that's because you were too busy doing something else. I said, I bet it was. I'm going to put a little bit. And I'm going to...
Oh my, that's a
Uh-huh.
lot.
Well, this is, and then we'll taste it again, okay?
Okay.
Oh, I gotta use my hands, honey, because this is part of the thing. You use your hands. I don't think people use their hands enough. Put it on a spoon, it'll sound more little. I guess it was the cornbread made it sweet, huh?
Good.
Is it good?
Mm-hmm. Delicious.
No more sage?
I don't think so. I bet it'll get sagier as it cooks.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Mm-hmm. I can put a little more.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Now see how how it is?
Uh-huh.
Then when you bake it, it'll, because you got an egg in here.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know how to tell you how much measure, I just do it. I put it here so it wouldn't make a mess.
That was nice of you.
Huh?
That was nice of you.
Yeah, well, I don't like messing.
Should I turn the oven on, or you're going to cook it later?
Do I?